Hello, everyone, and welcome in today. I am with Locked On Bills, Joe Marino. Joe, let's get right to it. It's been a busy few weeks with free agency, and right when we think that it might be slowing down a little bit, turns out Brandon Beane, he's still cooking some moves up, including the one today, guard David Edwards, adding some more depth to the O-line. What did you think about this move?
Well, given David Edwards' familiarity with Bills offensive line coach Aaron Kromer, this is a signing that I thought would come through at some point. What's interesting about David Edwards is kind of projecting him to the team and what type of role he's going to fit. You feel like the Bills have solidified who their starting five is going to be, and so does David Edwards have a realistic chance to challenge a Ryan Bates or to challenge a Conor McGovern, who the Bills have both paid pretty well over the last two off seasons, or is David Edwards just another depth option, which is a good thing. It's good to have depth. We saw the Bills last year really need to tap into their offensive line depth, and David Edwards, between his familiarity with Aaron Kromer, but also a couple of seasons of starting in the NFL, should position him well to come in for the Bills if needed at any point during the season.
Now, you mentioned Conor McGovern, obviously one of the newest additions to the Bills. On that topic, what other free agency moves kind of stood out to you in that way? Damian Harris, Trent Sherfield, Deontay Hardy, any of those stand out to you?
Well, certainly Conor McGovern does, because I think he's going to replace Roger Saffold, and he'll be an upgrade to Roger Saffold, which means the Bills' offensive line was upgraded, which I think most people can appreciate the need for that to happen. But I look at those two wide receivers, Trent Sherfield, Deontay Hardy, and while I don't expect them to be high volume targets for the offense, I do think that they can solidify the wide receiver 4 and 5 role with some good versatility, guys that have good hands that can really challenge all levels of the field. Deontay Hardy's very good against man coverage. You've got Trent Sherfield, who's very good against zone coverage. They should elevate the blocking. And so I think the wide receiver depth got a lot better there. And of course, Damian Harris, the Bills needed a physical downhill back, maybe take some of those short yardage carries away from Josh Allen, but also a big-time asset in pass protection. So when you look at this landscape of free agency for the Bills, I think they've done a good job of getting incrementally better on offense in some minor spots that actually could pay big dividends down the line.
Now, let's backtrack a little bit. Obviously, the first big thing that happened, losing Tremaine Edmonds. I think this was a big surprise to most people, as we'll touch on in a second. Most people thought, we're losing Poyer, we're going to keep Edmonds, whatever you have to do, keep Edmonds. Well, obviously, that's a deal the Bills couldn't compete with. What kind of impact do you think losing Tremaine Edmonds is going to have on this team?
I think it's fairly significant. You're talking about a 5-year starter, a guy that's been a captain 4 years in a row, 2-time Pro Bowler, and a really unique skill set. His ability to cover, right? Play pass coverage, get depth within his coverage depths, and really take away a lot of the middle of the field for opposing quarterbacks. That's not a skill set that's easy to replace. And so I do think the Bills are going to have to adopt some different defensive philosophies to kind of make up for what they're losing in Tremaine Edmonds. I'm with you. I thought it was going to be bring back Tremaine Edmonds, the young player that you drafted, right? Brandon Beane preaches, draft, develop, re-sign. And I thought maybe Jordan Poyer would be the guy on the way out, but it looks like the economics of both situations really allowed the Bills to bring back Poyer and not Edmonds, but certainly a big hole in the middle of the Bills defense right now.
Now, on the topic of defense and Jordan Poyer, obviously he's back for 2 more years, but something else that crucial that happened. So now the defense is kind of up, and we don't know what's going to happen there without Leslie Frazier. Is it going to be McDermott? We don't really know. How do you feel that Jordan Poyer, having a veteran like him on this roster is going to benefit the team and the defense specifically next season?
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. If there's anything that Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde have proven since coming to the team in 2017 is that they can be that conduit from the coaching staff to the players, right? They can connect that message from the coaching staff to the locker room. And I think with some of the transitions that are happening on defense, whether it's no Tremaine Edmonds, no Leslie Frazier, having Hyde and Poyer back in the mix together as a tandem on the back end is going to be a major asset to this Bills defense in 2023.
Okay, so now that we've covered, some free agency moves and predictions on some of these guys and their futures with the Bills, how do you think that your perception on future draft picks have changed? Obviously, it's coming up late April. Maybe before some of these moves that Brandon Beane has made, you had a thought. Now, how has that changed, and what are your predictions as we look forward to that?
Yeah, kind of went into the offseason thinking a lot about the interior offensive line, and it feels like the Bills between Conor McGovern and David Edwards have really answered that question with some veteran players. And now I look at the remaining needs on the team, and to me, it's middle linebacker where they haven't replaced Tremaine Edmonds. I know they drafted Terrell Bernard in the 3rd round last year. We'll see if he can be the successor there, but to me, I'd want more competition there. I still think the defensive line has some holes, whether it's at defensive tackle, where not only do you have this mix of Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, and Tim Settle, you're missing a guy, right? You're typically having 4 guys in that rotation, but all 3 of those players are expiring contracts after this season. You still have a situation at defensive end with Von Miller coming off of an injury. I know that everyone's hopeful that he'll be ready for week 1, but we're not sure. We saw the Trey White situation last year, and so I think the Bills need a little bit more help there. So it's D-line, it's linebacker, and then I think we can all appreciate the idea of adding more wide receiver talent and more firepower around Josh Allen. So that's kind of where my thoughts have shifted now that we've seen the first few waves of free agency pass and we're starting to look forward towards the NFL draft.
All right, well, we have Locked On Bills Joe Marino with some great insight on free agency and the upcoming draft. Thank you for that, and we'll have it all wrapped up for you on our website at WGRZ.